Let's see. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Here we are on our Thursday live. And wow, do I have a special treat for you all today? Super excited. Today, we are going to be talking about the 5 big reasons to add genetic testing to help you grow your practice. And I'm Lesli Bitel, business strategist and coach. And I am joined today by a very special guest. I'm super excited to have an opportunity to chat with Yael Joffe. Super big, warm welcome. And so, why don't you give us a little overview? Just kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lesli. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I'll start. Yeah, I think it's a great part of the journey of why genetic testing is so valuable is to tell you a little bit about my journey, just a quick version. So I started off studying architecture. I had no interest in nutrition, no interest in science or in saving the world or in fact in anything. I wanted to build houses. And then my gran got a GI cancer. Was really end stage. They opened it up, they closed it up and said, there's nothing we can do. Mm-hmm. And she was my only grandparent. I was very close to her and my world changed. And it was like, suddenly the idea of building houses didn't seem the most important thing that I could do. And I was like, hold on, there must be like, why didn't we know about her cancer? Why didn't they find it? Why didn't she eat better? How could we have prevented it? How could we? I had like a million questions. And this was 1987. And there were no answers. And I mean, no answers. So I made the decision to leave architecture and go find a degree in health. Now, Lesli, as you will well know, there is no such thing. And there definitely, well, now you could argue that there is. But in 1987, I could be like food science, food technology, home economics. This is what was recommended to me, right? And it's like medicine. I was like, I want to study health. And like they had no idea what I was talking about. So the closest thing I could find was dietetics. I knew that food was important. I was reading Patrick Holford's Optimum Nutrition Bible. So off I went. And within 3 weeks of being in that program, I was devastated, but like heartbroken, where they were advocating like chocolate cake and ice cream, macaroni cheese for their hospitalized patients. I was like, clearly this isn't the degree I was looking for. So I finished my dietetics degree with no more enthusiasm than that, but I didn't really know where else to go. So I got my dietetics degree and then I went traveling because I was like, that was a bad decision. What am I going to do now? Like I never solved anything. I never found any answers. And I went off to London, as we often do, to go make some money to go backpacking around Europe. And I was working at a nutrition clinic. Like you'll just do anything to make enough money to go backpacking, right? I was working at a nutrition clinic because I was a dietitian. And one day, this amazing person, Dr. Rosin Gill-Garrison, a real extraordinary woman, a real visionary, a geneticist, who had done her PhD in detox, right? Imagine now, like this is the year 2000, and she's talking about detoxification. Like even in 2021, we have an issue talking about it. Yeah, exactly. So she walks in.
That's a trailblazer.
She was truly, and she walks in, she goes, I'm looking for a dietitian who specializes in nutrigenomics. I was like, well, what is nutrigenomics? And she's like, genetics and nutrition. I was like, there's no relationship. There's like no relationship in genetics and nutrition. And she said, well, actually there is, like she's telling me. So I said, well, that sounds interesting, but I know nothing about it. So I can't help you. And she said, well, actually, I can't find anyone. So if you're willing and you're up for it, would you like to come and spend a few days with me and see if it's interesting? And that was literally the beginning of my journey. And this was in the year 2000, which was 3 years before the Human Genome Project was drafted. 3 years before. She was such an extraordinary visionary. She formed the first ever nutrigenomics company, which is called Saona. We moved Saona to Boulder, Colorado, including me. And about 3 years into working with Rosalind and this little startup in Boulder, I realized I knew nothing about genetics. Like truly, I felt like a total con, which happens to me every couple of years. I was like, I really, really, I'm sure you had this, that
Oh
thing
yeah.
that happens to us.
I think it's called imposter syndrome, right?
Imposter syndrome.
Let's give it a name.
Time it. Yeah, imposter. Every 3 years it hits me. But this was actually true. I genuinely was an imposter because while I knew about nutrition, I really, really didn't understand genetics. So I went back to university and I got a PhD in genetics, back into a lab, white coat, pipetting, horrible stuff. But I got a PhD in nutrigenomics. And I think around that time, I started thinking, actually, you know what? This is the field that has the answers for me that I was looking for when my grand died. Because suddenly a world was opened up to me that really could show me what nutrition could really, really do. So that's my long story short.
I love that. So that was what was such a devastating event in your life set you on your path, right? And put you in this place where you are now, being, the renowned nutrigenomics expert, right? Which is really such a inspiring story. So, guys, we have a lot of really great stuff that we're going to share with you today. I wanted to kind of kick things off with a little bit about Yael's story because it really is so inspiring. We're going to share, let me kind of give you a quick overview of some other things that I really want to delve into. We're going to talk a little bit about how genetic testing is going to help differentiate you from the competition and literally help your clients get better results, right? And when they get better results, then we're happy. As practitioners, that's what we live for. We're going to talk about how genetic testing can help also drive your revenue and save you time. And I think this is really going to be interesting. I want to touch on why you don't need a PhD in genetics to be able to successfully offer this valuable service to your own clients, because again, that imposter syndrome, right, that we alluded to, like that can definitely creep up. So we're going to talk about, what do you need to know and how do you offer this service without feeling like you have to go and get a PhD, right? And of course, much more along the way. So, so tell us where you are now. Tell us a little bit about. So I love hearing your journey, your story. That's so inspiring. Turning this devastating life event into your life's work, essentially. So, tell us where you are now.
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind, because I kind of dropped you.
Do.
I dropped you in like 2005.
Okay. So we have a big gap there to fill.
It's a big gap, and I want to give a little bit more context because it's so important. That so many people who've been listening, like, are no different from where I was, like a dietitian with a degree, feeling like where am I going with this? How can I have impact in the world? Where do I belong? So I just want to backtrack a little bit because I want to just also, I hadn't planned this, but I'm going to share a couple of key learnings that I got out of it. So the first thing is, so I was in nutrigenomics and I'd found my world, which was great. And I got my PhD, which, trust me, is not the solution to everything, because actually you learn a whole lot about very little. And mostly PhDs are kind of passports, really, that open doors. But that's another conversation for another day. But I still didn't know how I was going to have a career or an impact with what I had. And I was working for multiple companies that were building genetic tests, but still was feeling the sense of disillusion. Now, I had this theme, which I never truly understood until about 6 months ago. I sat and I looked back on my life and I plotted my career. And it was amazing how there was this recurring theme. And I was joking about the imposter syndrome, but it's something like this. It's about, I have a dream, I have a vision. I go try and find that place. I learn something. I feel like I found something because I've raised my skill and I've learned more. I then realize how much I don't know. And I realize how many pieces of the puzzle I haven't been able to overcome. And I feel the sense of disillusionment again and imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And at every single time in my life that this has happened to me, I have come across an extraordinary individual, an amazing human. In my case, it's always been woman, but it doesn't have to be, who every single time when I'm feeling lost in my journey, I have reached out to someone and they've helped me find my way. So with Rosengill Garrison in 2000, who introduced me, Dr. Ruth DeBusk is one of the most extraordinary. She was actually one of the great, she was my mentor, who became an incredible mentor to me. And the lesson is, I had the cheek of phoning her up when she didn't have no idea where I am and said, my name's Yael. I'm in nutrigenomics. I know nothing. You know so much. I want to write a book. Would you like to write the book with me? Now, we have a word in Yiddish for that, which is chutzpah, but it's about like just going and asking for help. And she became not only a mentor, she was a co-author, she was a friend. And there's been Dr. Christine Horton. I mean, I can give you so many of these extraordinary women who every 3-4 years of my life, when I was feeling at my worst, I would find a way. I know this is totally unrelated, but I can't help myself.
It's all good.
Because it's so important for you that when you are feeling like you're battling, when it's hard, when you're going, uphill and going through mud, but you know that you have something to offer, that you have to seek out. Two things I do. I go to a conference every single time. I try and find a conference that'll inspire me. And try not go to the same conference you always go to. So find a different kind of conference where you can learn something different. And I try reach out to someone who I believe will inspire me or mentor me. And I've been doing this in cycles. And every time I hit my disillusionment. So the example is, I was building genetic tests. About 2014, 15, I was like, I hate these tests. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't think we're offering value to our patients. I left genetic testing and I wanted to focus on education. I needed to build an education company to teach nutrigenomics to practitioners because they didn't get taught it in clinical care at university. And I had this dream to build a test. Well, I didn't know where to start. I knew nothing about education. I went to a conference. I stood in a queue for lunch to get pasta, met an extraordinary human being, Dr. Christine Horton, landed up having this extraordinary we built education courses together. She's written an amazing book on nutrigenomics. She's on our scientific advisory board. We landed up never going back to the conference, eating pasta and drinking wine, and deciding how we were going to build a course. So then I opened a clinic because I wanted to see whether what I was teaching manifested, whether, that just because you can teach it doesn't mean it works. Opened a clinic, got these amazing dietitians and doctors to come work with me. And we all worked together to grow nutrigenomics. Then people were saying, but I don't live in that area. Can you teach me? So we built a network, a small community. So at every single blockage, every single time I thought I'd hit a wall, there was always something on the other side which shot me forward, right? So where am I now? Where am I now? So about 4 years ago, I hit one of my walls. And I said, I've built genetic tests. I've built an education company, which I love. I built a clinic, which I love, but the test that I'm using in the clinic, I hate. And I used to get black marker and cross it out. I was like, so clearly my journey is not done. And there's another piece to the puzzle. And when I looked around at all the genetic testing companies in the marketplace, I was like, this is insane. The test that I built in 2000 is almost not different from what I was seeing in 2017. I was like, how could I have spent 17 years of my career and there is so little progress? So I was like, partly the failure of me, because clearly I hadn't impacted the industry very much. Anyway, so I decided one more shot. I'm going to have another go at this. And I'm going to build a company where I'm going to try fix everything, right? I'm going to fix nutrigenomic education. I'm going to build mentorship. So mentorships, I know you and I, we love mentorship. Mentorship is so key. So I'm going to build a mentorship program to help practitioners really work with nutrigenomics in the practice. I'm going to build a community so that no one feels lonely in the space or in the journey, because I know what it was like for me for 15 years, having no one to walk the journey with. And then I'm going to address the science. And I am going to build the best genetic science in a nutrigenomic test that I can. And so that's been my work for the last 3 years. And again, it was about finding amazing people to work with. And that's the company that I own now, which is 3x4 Genetics. And we have this amazing network of practitioners, about 1,000 practitioners, multidisciplinary. We love multidisciplinary. So I always say it doesn't matter what your undergrad is, it's what you do when you actually leave the undergrad. Right? And we work with them to be able to really grow as practitioners, to upskill themselves, to bring nutrigenomics into their practice. And the reason I'm so excited talking to Lesli is because being this, I always talk about like this expert practitioner is no longer just about nutrition. It's no longer just about genetics. It's about technology. It's about user experience. It's about coaching. And most importantly, it's understanding how do we grow our business, you know, and I don't have the skills at all, you know. So I reached out to Lesli to say, I'd love to learn from you and understand if we've got this amazing, sorry, I'm talking so much, this amazing genetic tool, this amazing new insight that we can use with our patients, how do we leverage it with the work that you do to be able to uplift practitioners to truly differentiate themselves? So I think that I probably that was like the spoiler, but I think that's where I am now.
Yeah. No, I love it. Makes such sense. I mean, and it is true. The people on this call today, most of us in our education, we got a lot of really good stuff when it comes to becoming a practitioner, right? Maybe not so much the nutritional genomics, right? In our training, like that's definitely an area of specialization above and beyond. But just in terms of being, you know, well trained and educated in, you know, in our craft, right? It's the business side that's often lacking. And that's obviously that's where I become very passionate in helping practitioners, you know, really fill that gap and feel really comfortable and confident in all of those strategies moving forward to help them to attract clients and serve clients and really build a profitable business doing the work that they love. So I am right with you there. So I'm really curious. I'd love to chat more about you know, what are some of the changes in terms of the 3x4 test, right? What are some of those changes that you integrated as compared to, you know, what's out there now? How does your test differ?
Okay, so we can talk just about the test.
A little bit.
We've spoken about we've spoken about a little bit. We won't talk too much. Right? We've spoken about education, mentorship, all of that. But you know, when I looked back and I looked at all the tests I had built, but also all the tests in the marketplace, which I call the mushrooms, you know, that I wake up every morning and there's a new genetic testing company. Happens to me almost every day, right? I get an email. Have you heard about this testing company? Okay. And I was like, what are we missing? Because, you know, there's this real issue around clinical translation, that if you're a practitioner and you're ordering tests, you've got to ensure that there is clinical translational value to them. Because if not, we're selling data to our patients. And it doesn't matter how cheap the data is, it's just data. So I'm going to keep that in mind when we think about 23andMe, that just because you got the like Mother's Day special for $49.95
right.
from 23andMe, right? It's like buy one and get 65 free. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean? And you get all this data, like when you wake up in the morning after getting your 23andMe test, like, do you actually know what to do? Has it changed your decision-making about what you want to do for your breakfast? Or if your patient brings you a 23, exactly. So
it hasn't helped me a bit.
Right.
Right? It just hasn't.
Right. And you're a practitioner, right? Now imagine the consumer. So I was like, so I don't want to sell data. I'll let 23andMe do that. I want to sell value. So I didn't want to think about price or cost. How much does this test cost? Or how many genes are inside? Like, I get 600,000 from 23andMe. You only gave me 134. I wanted to think like, what is the value of this information that is going to change my decision making? Mm-hmm. So starting with that in mind, I started looking at how we build genetic tests. And there were two things I need to interrogate. The one is the science, which this probably isn't the place to talk about it, but there was so many things wrong about how we were building genetic tests, from this idea that you could take a single gene variant, a SNP, and give a diet and lifestyle and 25 different supplements you needed to take just because you had MTHFR, right? Which is how the industry was built. But actually, when you look at these genes, they're not that powerful. One gene alone is not that powerful. When we group them together and we see how they change our body and our biochemistry and our physiology, suddenly they're informative to us as a practitioner. So I started thinking about how to build genes together into groups. I'm functionally trained. I've been passionate about functional medicine, functional nutrition. So I really used the functional training of start upstream, look at the root cause, and then group them into these biochemical pathways, which are called pathways. And then one day someone said to me, which is really good advice for anyone who's in a business, is what happens if you get hit by a bus? I was like, well, that's nice. And they said, no, but really, like, who's going to build the next test, right? If all of it's in your head, who's going to build the next test? And I was like, that's valid. So I set up on this journey I have an amazing team of scientists. How can we build something that was completely independent of me? I could go on holiday for 6 months and they'd still be able to build tests because we had built something that had a methodology that was completely independent of my personality, my opinion, whether ApoE is my favorite gene or COMT is my favorite gene.
Right.
And it would be transparent for you, the practitioner. So we could say to you, we chose this gene to put in our report because of all these reasons. And the key to what we built, we call it Darwin, because we say it's survival of the fittest, because only the fittest genes survive to make it into our report, is the idea of scientific validity and clinical utility, which is the science good enough? Which should be a given, right? Tick. But the second part is where the magic happens, which is this clinically useful? And the bottom line is, can I prove to you that this gene variant will help you make a different decision with your patient than you would have made if you didn't have this information? Because if it's going to influence your decision making, it's now clinically valuable to you. If it makes no difference to what you do, well, it's data. So we built this amazing methodology. But on the other side, Leslie, it isn't just about science. And all the genetic tests I built, and this is, again, just such a great lesson and took me like 20 years to learn. Up until then, every single company that I'd founded or built genetic test, the scientist had built the test, right? So when the scientist builds a test, all we think about is the science. But what we don't think about is the patient. And we don't think about, how does the patient experience this information? How does the patient feel when they see this report? Does it overwhelm them? Does it terrify them? Does it excite them? Does it make them want to change their behavior? Is there something they don't understand? Is there a story they can understand? How does it appeal to them? So I went and found this amazing company called Sea Monster, who were a gamification company. And they build gamification, but for behavioral change, not Candy Crush behavior, not Minecraft, but how do we use gamification to change behavior? And in fact, in the beginning, we formed a company that said, how do we take my genetic background and their gamification and build a report that can engage your patients in such a way that they want to interact with their genetic information and that there's a journey or a story for them. And so our report looks different from anyone else because it's based on two things: color, the language of color, because everyone can speak color, right? And the other one is what I call the visual conversation, which is using imagery. You know, when I had the clinic, we used to draw pictures for our patients all the time. So I was like, if we draw pictures all the time, why don't we create a report of imagery? And it allows storytelling, it allows engagement, it allows practitioner to have a conversation with their patient and vice versa. And what it did is it took away this paternalistic idea of, here's a genetic report that looks like a cholesterol report, which looks like a Quest report that looks like a lab coat report. And so those are the two major things: great science that you as a practitioner can trust and feel safe, and an amazing user experience for not only your patient, but for you, the practitioner. And one of the key things that we did was, how do we reduce the amount of time you as a practitioner spend? Because this is a business decision, right? So when we interviewed practitioners, they were spending 90 minutes going through a report before they saw their patient. And that's 90 minutes you're not being paid for, right? That's 3 minutes. Because you need to decipher this report, which is just data. And then you need to explain it to your patient. And it's not going to take you 30 minutes to explain to your patient, or an hour. It's probably going to take you 2 hours to explain it. So, and you're probably charging for an hour out of those 5 hours. So we wanted to figure out how we could give you a report that you could literally understand in 20 minutes yourself. I can do it in like 3 minutes. You can do it in 20 or 30 minutes. As you become more experienced, it's less. So there's no burden of time for you. And you can either spend 2 hours with your patient if you want to, but you can spend 30 minutes with your patient, because we've got color and we've got image. Because as long as genetic testing is a burden to you in your practice and is costing you money instead of earning you money, we will never bring this amazing tool into our practice.
I love that. So, and I do remember when genetic testing first really hit I don't want to say mainstream, but mainstream with practitioners. It really was so time consuming. I remember that whole process, and just, trying to understand the report, trying to, really gather up all the recommendations based on the report, presenting the report to the patient. It was like and not to mention the ordering, right? Ordering the test kit, like all of these things. And then the other part was going back to that concept: do I need to get a PhD in genetics to be able to, actually do something with the data? So what I'm hearing loud and clear is that is really like you've taken care of those things in this report. It's easy to understand.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about, because I can imagine our audience is concerned, those that maybe have not dipped their toe into genetic testing. Perhaps they're concerned that like they just don't have that knowledge base to even go there. What do you have to say about that?
I'm so glad you raised that. So this is how I see nutrigenomics, is that it's entirely a journey. And I talk about nutrigenomics practitioners as pioneers, because it's not something you were taught. So you're not alone. Like, you're all stepping in somewhere that you haven't been skilled for. And I started by dipping my toe in, right? We all started by dipping my toe. I've been doing it for 20 years, but when I couldn't even remember what a gene is, I had to go and get my biology textbook to remember what a chromosome and but it's like, really?
Right.
And
no,
I was like,
I remember,
working in nutrigenomics. Totally. So I always say, like, we have this amazing community, and in this community, we have practitioners who are literally putting their toe in. I have no idea what a gene or chromosome is. And then we have practitioners who have been working this for years. They've done courses, they've been working with genetic tests, and they hit up. And I see it as this beautiful journey from dipping your toe to being what I call the expert nutrigenomics practitioner. And having said that, not everyone wants to be the expert, right? You don't have to be an expert. You can hang at the beginning of the journey and just dabble and learn. But I also have this amazing slide with a dinosaur on and a double helix. And it basically says, if you're a practitioner and you're not learning about genetics, you are being left behind. You don't have to look far. You just have to look at every conference, every journal, every newsletter that's coming out. There's going to be one article or two presentations that's going to have genetics in. So if you're going to be able to want to read journal articles, if you want to attend conferences, you at least need to have the basic language so that you can speak nutrigenomics. Even if you don't want to work with nutrigenomics, just learn the language so you can at least follow what's happening, even if you don't want to come. Okay, so that's one point. The other point is the way we built the report is we built it in multi-layers. So if you are a dipping the toe practitioner and literally you're like never done a genetic test, a feedback in your life, you can use the first part of our report, which is literally just pathways and colors and pictures. And you don't have to use the pages that have got gene results and pathway. Like, you can literally and still offer incredible, meaningful clinical value to your patient, right? Or as you go along and you learn, and we have this amazing journey plotted out for you, right? Education, webinars, mentorship, power hours, one-on-one. We don't let you go. We hold your hand from beginning to expert, right? And you can access more and more in the report as you become more expert. And we see this, that practitioners will start becoming more confident and they will start utilizing more detail. So in the beginning, you might only look at the pathways and not the individual genes. Then you might become comfortable with like 5 or 6 genes and like check them. And by the end, because we have this amazing thing called the clinical guide, which sits in our portal, which I call the Google of nutrigenomics, where you can literally type in COMT, MTHFR, methylation, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about the gene, what you need to know about it, how it impacts, what are the recommendations, diet recommendations, lifestyle recommendations, supplement recommendations. It is your Google platform for nutrigenomics. So in the beginning, you just Google away and you find what you need to know, but you don't need to know everything. And what we always say is we find that you've got to jump in. It's like anything, whether it's functional or integrative, whether it doesn't matter whether it's doing group-based treatment. The only way to do it is to do it, to try work with an organization that offers mentorship so you get some hand-holding. So we like, on the first patient you ever have with us, we get a mentor to go through the report with you. So you're super prepared. And if you need a second one, we'll help you with that as well. And we will support you until such time as you go, okay, you can let go of my hand. Because the journey is long. The journey is long. And we don't want you to not put that toe in because you might feel like, as I said, your imposter syndrome, as Jana said.
Exactly. I love it. Oh, we do have some comments here. Yep. Imposter syndrome for sure. And hey, Elisa, good to see you, Elisa. Oh my goodness.
I think Jana's actually one of ours. She's one of ours. She found us here. She's one of the 3
Oh, right here. Okay. Oh, great. Welcome. So good to have you. Fantastic. Okay. Well, that certainly helps clarify, not only how your reporting process is different, and, honestly, I'm guessing it really helps ease some of those anxieties and fears around moving forward. And I think that really, to me, is the key takeaway message here is, you don't have to be this expert to use this kind of data to help your patients. It's a process. It's a journey. And I think the key is just get started. And I love the idea of approaching this with just a sense of curiosity, right? How can this help me? How can this help my patients? And then just really trying to build on that over time, if you desire, right? You don't have to be that expert. It really is a choice. So I'm hearing that 3x4 Genetics really offers that high level of support in terms of the clinical knowledge and all the hand-holding necessary to help that practitioner be competent and confident in offering the service. I would love to shift gears and talk a little bit about the business, right? So since that is my passion, let's chat a little bit. Like, how do you see this test in terms of helping the practitioner really differentiate in the marketplace? It's a very noisy marketplace, especially online. Lots and lots of practitioners have moved their practices online. And so how do you see this test really helping them to catapult their ability to differentiate and to generate revenue and create great results. I mean, really, it's kind of a trifecta, right?
It's a trifecta, yeah. So I think there are a couple of elements to it, exactly as you spoke. So one thing I think we can all agree on is that personalized nutrition is the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might not think that nutrigenomics is going to be like, you're going to be an expert, but the one thing you can't deny is that we're moving into the next century of personalized nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And that means being able to understand our patients. That's what it means. How do we find, I always say, like, how do we know what we don't know? So we've all been well trained in clinical assessment and, you know, looking at some standard biomarkers. But what about knowing what we don't know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love this concept. I used to talk about this concept of genes first. And people used to say, oh, I treated this patient and I tried this and nothing worked. And then I did a genetic test. And I'm like, no, wrong way around. Because I know from my days as a practitioner, one of the worst things you can do a patient is trial and error on so many levels, right? So
Absolutely.
when you try something with a patient and it fails and you try something again, you're breaking them down psychologically, emotionally, and metabolically, right? So when they have that readiness to change and you are having them ready to do something, but you don't actually have the right solution, you will either lose them and they'll leave the practice, or will harm them in some way, either emotionally or even physically by the trial, especially in the kind of weight management space. So I love this idea of placing genes first, because what does it do? It tells us what we don't know. So we know what we don't know. And it reduces significantly the trial and error, which is the most damaging thing we can do as practitioners. So right up front, we are personalizing our intervention with our patient right up front. And I'll tell you another secret about genetic testing is behavioral change. When a patient comes to you and you tell them to eat a gluten-free pan, and they'll say, well, I saw that on Newsweek, I saw that in Time Magazine, I saw it on CNN, saw it on Fox News, like whatever. But if you do their genetics and their genes, not your genes, and remember, genes don't change, right? So it doesn't matter if they test them again, it's not going to change. And their genes are saying, you know what? Your body doesn't react well to gluten. Suddenly, it's an internal, intrinsic conversation that's happening and saying, oh, wow, this is my story now. This isn't something I read about in the media or in a magazine or my best friend told me or my mother said I should do. This is me. And I can run as fast as I want, but my genes are me. And so from a behavioral change point of view, genetics is extremely powerful. So two things. Know what you don't know so that you can decrease trial and error in your practice with your patients. Extremely powerful for growing a successful practice. The second thing is to drive behavioral change. One of the best ways to get great outcomes and great results in your practice is to be able to get them to listen to what you're telling them. And they're more likely to tell them if they take ownership and responsibility, which I'm sure you know. And the best way to take ownership and responsibility is when it's their genes. It's not your problem. I'm going home.
Right.
I don't have gluten issues, right? You can go home. You can go anywhere. You still got gluten issues because genetically it's there. And whether it's gluten or caffeine or choline or whatever, right? So better treatment because we decrease trial and error. All right. Better customer service because we are bringing it right up front. We're not going to be like, I'm going to try what I usually do. If it doesn't work, we'll see what we can do. I want to know what to focus on right up front. Okay. We know that there's generally better results. So we get better outcomes because it's more personalized. And the other thing is, how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? How do you stand above what everyone else is doing? And we know how it's getting harder and harder to do that. And I see these hundreds and hundreds of new practitioners coming into the marketplace who don't have your experience. They don't have the extra tuition that you have. They don't have that. And I'm like, how are you going to put your head up and say, this is what I do differently? And there is nothing better than to say, what I do differently is I define who you are before we begin. Right? I always say, like, the story of genetics is all about insight and action. Insight, know who your patient is, let them understand who they are. And what we're looking for is, who am I and how do I respond to the world around me? Whether it's caffeine or lactose or gluten, whether it's stress or trauma or exercise or meditation, genetics tells us how we respond to the world around us. So let's start off by understanding that with our patient. The second part of genetics is action. Now that we know who we are, now that we know how we respond, because the fancy word is nutrigenomics, the other word is responsiveness, right? How we respond to the world, we can make daily micro decisions every single time we make a decision. When we go to the coffee shop and choose our coffee, when we get up in the morning and we grab our phone, or instead we spend 5 minutes meditating. Not me, I don't do that, but I love swimming, so I go to the ocean. So what are the choices I'm making that are going to switch on or switch off the genes that are going to drive the most optimal health? So 2 parts to genetics: insight, know who you are and how you respond to the world; action, know how the choices you are making will change the way your genes switch on and switch, which will heal yourself or drive optimal health. If that doesn't differentiate you in the marketplace, like, what else is there, right?
Exactly. So huge. Oh my goodness. I love that whole idea of, the avoiding trial and error, because it's so frustrating. And I would say there's a pretty good chance with that model that you're not going to get that second chance, right? As the practitioner, because people, they want results. They want results. They want a comprehensive solution to the problem that they're struggling with. And they don't want it to go on and on and on before they start to make progress. So I think that's absolutely brilliant.
And they want to be heard.
Really,
they want to be heard. They want to be heard. And they want to say, this is who I am. I don't lose weight like my sister. I don't lose weight like my best friend. I've been battling my whole life and no one will listen to my story. The story sits in the DNA.
Wow, that's really powerful. So powerful. So as we look at actually 2 things, can you give us an overview, like just kind of a big picture summary of those, the 5 steps that you and I talked about? Not the 5 steps, the 5 big overarching reasons.
Okay.
Or should we, maybe we can just like talk through that kind of big picture, because I know you have an ebook that goes into a lot more detail. And so I'm going to recommend that every single one of you, everybody that's either listening to the live stream right now, and also those of you that are going to catch the replay, really want to recommend that you grab this ebook. I read it myself. It's phenomenal. And there's a lot more to it than these 5 big reasons. Yeah. So while you describe those, Yael, I'm going to go ahead and type in the URL so that everyone here can grab that ebook.
Absolutely. And if you can't, for any reason, use it, just go to our website and you can download it from there. And the idea behind the ebook is it's not a clinical document. It's really like, how do I get started in practice using genetics? And what are my obstacles? What do I need to overcome? How do I do that? And then what are the benefits, which is what we're speaking about, right? What are the tangible benefits? So benefit number 1, I'm going to just quickly go through them, but the detail is in the ebook, and it's not a long ebook. It's not going to take you a long time to read, right? 1, better treatment. Okay. So offering personalization, tailored, targeted, actionable recommendations, we're going to get better outcomes, right? Second one is more versatility, adding another tool to your toolbox, right? So again, it talks a little bit to differentiating yourself, but how do you become a better practitioner? How do you know more about your patient? You need to have more tools in your toolbox. All right. So we talk about better customer service, which is about how you as a practitioner are keeping up with personalized nutrition. You are in the right place. You are on the front end of what's happening in nutrition. You're not sitting back on what you learned at university and hoping that's going to be enough with a pyramid and a plate and some DRIs and RDAs. No, you are right at the front end, educating your patients, helping your patients, bringing them into this new world of personalized nutrition. We've spoken about better results, about getting better outcomes, because we start off understanding who our patient is and identifying where to target our interventions upfront, right? And then the last one, my favorite, is that competitive edge. You get a better competitive edge by differentiating yourself in the marketplace, attracting new patients. One of the things we see a lot with our practitioners is how they bundle genetics. So they don't necessarily, so it's not that they make money off the genetic test per se, but they create bundles or packages and say, come to us, we are going to find out who you are. I'm going to tell you who you are based on your genes. And then we're going to have a whole number. So the most successful practitioners I work with almost always bundle the genetic test into a package so that it's a journey for the patient, right? Found out who you are, insight, action. And they sell the bundle, which you can then add. So you can obviously increase the value of, so you're buying the test for a certain amount, but in a bundle, you can obviously add value into that. So that's where we're seeing the greatest kind of success from business practice. Group. So we're doing a lot of work investigating group-based genetic feedback, where you can sell, 10 genetic tests, you bring them in, you do education around the genetic test, the value of genetics, why it's helpful. You have a couple of breakaway sessions, one-on-one sessions, bring them back again where they get to talk about their results. They look at the images. So there's a lot of fantastic work. We had one amazing functional medicine MD who just did a group-based program with 30 patients with genetics as the foundational anchor of the program. So there's definitely the sense that genetics, when in these group-based programs, genetics offering a stronger anchor and personalized element to group, because group can be less personalized, right? And what they're finding is that by putting genetics up front in these group programs, they're really building out personalization in a group environment. So it's things like this where we can really use genetics to leverage how we do things to attract patients to us, because we're offering both the great service we've always been offering, but that personalized element as well.
Okay. I love the idea of offering this in a group. So fantastic.
I think it's the future.
My goodness.
Seeing a lot more of this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's make a deal right now. Yael, let's do another live stream. Let's delve more into that concept for sure. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. But so in the work that I do with clients, I mean, everybody wants to scale, right? Every person that I work with really wants to, well, plus I think a lot of us are teachers at heart, right? So we enjoy working with groups of people, and we can touch more lives that way. There's so many reasons behind that. And it's so fascinating that you mentioned this, because I too work with quite a few functional practitioners who are integrating tests, and we are finding really interesting ways to utilize testing in the group model. And I'm actually finding those are the most successful programs, right? In terms of the scalable types of offerings. So
because it doesn't just benefit the practitioner, it actually benefits the patient, because what they're finding is the practitioner can scale, but the patient gains so much from the group environment that it's a win-win. So I really believe that group is going to be the big conversation for the next year.
Yeah. And I'll add one more benefit to that based on my observation. The patient wants that personalization, right? So like a group, like an online course, for example, that has no personalization at all, especially if someone's really kind of struggling, right? They have health issues, that is not as attractive, even though the price point is lower, right, guys? Because remember,
Right.
the group programs, generally, we're looking at a little lower price point. Bottom line is patients, they want a solution, right? They're willing to pay more for a personalized solution, and they get this benefit of doing it in the community. Guys, especially after, everyone just, everything we've gone through over the last, year and a half, people want community. They are
want
craving
connection.
community. They absolutely do. So, okay, get really fired up over that topic because, guys, the opportunity is so ripe. So I really want to encourage you. Actually, a couple things. I want to encourage you. You can see the 3x4genetics.com. We've got the URL scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Go ahead, go there, look around, grab that ebook. I think it's going to be super helpful. And then I also posted the direct link to get the ebook in the comments. Now, guys, just remember, the comments, I can only see the comments through my Facebook page, but I will go after this live stream is over. I'll go in and drop it in the other places that we're streaming. Any final words of wisdom? Any parting recommendations?
I
know there's so much to say.
So it's like, we could talk for hours. I feel like, we're getting into so much of a better space where we're having the right conversations. And as a dietitian for so many years, no one was telling me, how do we build a successful business out of this? How do I build a career? Like there just wasn't the guidance and the mentorship. So, all I'd say is, if I give any advice is have courage, step in and just try it. And it doesn't matter what it is. I'm not even it doesn't matter if it's not nutrigenomics, right? It's because you just have to do it. You just have to have courage. And that's where things happen. Right. Because it's amazing. I promise you, you will find your people. You will find your mentors. You will find the knowledge you're looking for, but not if you just, I guess if you were sitting at home, you wouldn't be listening to this in the first place. So
that's true.
You're really preaching to the converted, but
the trailblazers are on this call. But some of us still need that little nudge, right? Yeah. So I would agree. Step in, approach it with curiosity, just, dip your toe in, see if it's for you. And really just, one thing about us as a community, dietitians, practitioners is we love to learn, right? So most of us are really chronic learners. So this is just a really exciting avenue that can just absolutely open up your world and your patients, your clients, right? Really put them on that fast track to regaining their health. So, and of course, we just barely scratched the surface in terms of how this can help you to really grow your business. So more on this again. I absolutely want to continue our conversation, Yael. This was so incredible. So I want to thank you for your time. Thanks to everyone that joined us here today live, and also those of you that are going to catch the replay. And any questions that you have, feel free to reach out to me, leslibitel.com. And I will look forward to seeing you all again next week. All right. So bye for now. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks so much.
And a great weekend. Thanks, Yael. And I will look forward to continuing our conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a great day.